Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks very much for joining us, I guess. Great to see so many of you back. This is the third one in the series of the career planning webinars for the revenue management world. Our aim with this is to try and break down the different thought processes, different parts of things to consider within your career. So today, is looking at the culture and business types that might suit you, and to get you thinking and really building on hopefully what maybe you thought about last week, which was last week we were obviously talking about the differences between short-term enjoyment and long-term job satisfaction, and how people engaging in your job and in your company really defines how a big part of how much job satisfaction you get. And engagement is really made up of autonomy, positive feedback, those different elements we discussed last week. So this is then looking at what cultures might suit those different types of or provide you those environments, such as environments that give you autonomy, environments where you're given that positive feedback, those sorts of things, and that's what I'll go on to now. As always, I guess just to start with, to get you involved, I'm going to get you to do a poll, and the poll today is, if you were moving company, and that's not to say you are, but imagine you were, because I'm thinking about moving to a different culture from the one you're in, would you be confident in what type of culture you wanted that company to have? What type of culture you want to move into? Yes, not sure, or no? Not too many options. Interesting to see how well you understand the cultures of businesses and what's available to what types there are. Okay, so I'll give you 5 more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so majority yes, which is great. Quite a few in the not sure. So this and one of the no. So the good news is, I think this will help you quite considerably. I'm hoping even the people that feel you know what type of culture you want. I think when I break down the different types of cultures that generically companies, businesses have, it might help you to actually pinpoint specifically the culture you're after. Okay, so I'm then going to do a second one, which is, how confident would you be if you were moving jobs again, looking for a new culture? How confident would you be in how to find out about that company's culture, and if you were joining them, that it was the right culture for you? So very confident, you'd investigate and check. Fairly confident, you'd use the interview and some online research. Average confidence, because you try to find out, but you'd find out from the interviews predominantly. And not overly, because there's a lot of gut feel, and you just rely on how you get on with the interview. And not at all, because the interviews mean nothing. Okay, I'll give you 5 more seconds on that. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so interestingly, so most people are fairly confident. So the interview and some online research, and then we've got a bit of a range other than that. Okay, so I actually think this is difficult. I think, on a positive note, employers nowadays are more in tune with trying to make sure the people they're employing fit with their own company culture. So I think on a positive note, employers are trying to make sure they find the right people. They don't want people that aren't going to be comfortable in their environment and aren't going to last. But I definitely think in the market there is a weakness in individuals when they're going to interviews, or when they're looking for a new role, for instance. I definitely feel they don't quite know, firstly, what the cultural situations are, what differences there are, and secondly, maybe how to dig in to find that out. So online research is definitely a major part of that, and we'll mention that later on, but also so is the type of questions that you need to ask. And I think these aren't questions that are ever asked. I don't, when we're helping, talking, briefing people about new jobs, we rarely get asked by those people, specifically what's the culture, and some questions that I'll come through later on. So I guess the thing I want to mention today is we've got a guest speaker today who I'll introduce properly later, but I think that he will give you, and I'll explain when we get to that, he'll give you hopefully just a good difference of opinion on different industries that he's worked in, and perhaps, you know, what the positives were of each one, and that sort of thing. So that'll give you hopefully a real life, some real life thoughts from Nick later on. So I'll introduce him when we get to that point. And welcome, Nick. Thanks for joining us. So there's four main different types of company culture. There's the clan culture, which is growing together and is a family feel. And we'll break down each one of these in a minute in a little bit more detail, and then we'll come back to this diagram at the end so you can compare your thoughts. So clan is family, growing together as one. You've got adhocracy, which is sort of given away with the name, really, but it's about it's ad hoc, it's more creative, it's thinking outside the box, coming up with new ideas. The market culture is very results driven, it's get the job done, it's about the end result. And hierarchy, which is more about the structure, a hierarchy of management and getting things done correctly, so more process driven. So we'll explain a little bit more about those now, and I'll come back to this internal external flexibility and stability axis at the end. So clan is a culture which is generally pretty friendly, pretty upbeat. Employees tend to get on quite well because they have quite similar interests, and it's really quite a fun family feel. It's really, if you imagine, the good way to think of a clan culture is a sort of startup business where everyone understands what the common goal is, and it might be associated to something like a pre-opening of a hotel, where the team is being built, people are coming in understanding there's an opening date, and they've got to get everything in place, the hotel up and running and ready to go by that date. And from a revenue management point of view, it's getting the processes, the systems, the planning, the pricing strategies all in place and ready to go. But the whole organization, the whole hotel in that situation will understand where we're trying to go and how we're trying to get there, and there's one common goal. And what that common goal will often do within a sort of family type feel is it allows people in it to have a lot of autonomy, because they understand where they're trying to get to, they understand what the goal is, and therefore they're given that freedom to say we all are working together on this, and there's a confidence that's the aim. So they don't need to be checked in terms of what they're doing, because it's more about we're all in this together, and that drives the sort of results and the responsibilities and the focus on duties. It's often led by maybe a sort of father figure, mentor type, and they lead the vision and everyone follows that vision. There is a weakness, and there's a weakness with all of these, and the weakness in their clan culture is underperformance. So if you remember last week, when we were talking about job satisfaction and enjoyment, we were looking at you need a certain amount of pressure to perform at an optimum level. Well, that's the problem with clan can be if everybody feels good and everyone's having fun and everyone is generally not managed, you know, and it ticks along at its own pace. Actually, there's not enough pressure sometimes to perform at your best or at the optimum level, so there can be underperformance. So, you know, when we were saying last week, you have a certain level of skill, therefore you have to be challenged in a relevant amount to that skill in order to perform well. And when you perform well, it's a big factor in the enjoyment, in the job satisfaction, in the engagement of your job, and therefore you perform better. So that can be a problem with the clan culture. Adhocracy, as we mentioned, says it in the name, really. It's much more innovative, a lot of flexibility, and it's really about, it's quite entrepreneurial. It's really about, and if you imagine a business like something like easyJet, when it first started, was very adhocracy. It was about breaking boundaries. It was about being creative. easyJet was one of the first budget airlines trying to break the mold. You know, you have things like Facebook is similar to is adhocracy. It's about breaking ideas, being creative. It tends to be quite energetic, tends to be quite fast paced. and tends to be something where people are taking risks and really trying to come up with something new. I think this is difficult to find, I think, a bit in revenue management, because revenue management is quite process orientated. You can be creative with some new ideas for promotions and things, but actually as a whole culture, it's difficult to find a hotel or too many industries that have this where revenue management's a big function within it. One area perhaps I said was like easyJet originally, but then when that became much bigger, it became one of the cultures we'll come on to in a minute, probably market, and then hierarchy. But maybe some of the revenue management consultancies perhaps could be a little bit more adhocracy, where they're trying to break the mold. They're trying to offer revenue management thoughts and ideas and services to organizations in a different way. I guess some of those consultancies might give you some of that sort of more creative side of things. Disadvantage is it can feel disorganized. If you are somebody who likes to know what the end result's going to be and you're driving to that, if you're somebody that likes to follow a process, then this is not the environment. You will feel lost. You will feel, because you're left to your own devices really to be creative and take risks, you will feel you're not given set duties, and therefore you'll feel as though no one's actually telling me what job I need to be doing. And this therefore isn't an environment that would suit you. So the market environment is very results driven. It's quite ruthless a lot of the time, and it's all about the end result. It's target driven, and it is about people achieving those targets. Tends to often can have tough leaders, because the leaders, the management, have to make sure that the people are delivering the results that they're targeted to do. The expectations are the people will deliver those results, and therefore can have quite high staff turnover to make sure they get the people that are driven by end result, by end product. And it's really all about market share and profits. It's about how can we win. It's about what that end result gives them. And I don't want to talk derogatively. I don't say this derogatively, because for some cultures, for some people, this is the culture that works best for them. And actually, probably me, truthfully, I'm target driven. I like to have a figure, an aim I'm going for, and be able to look back and say, actually, I've achieved that. For me, that's very important, being able to review and look back. And I think this is the sort of culture that happens a lot in, say, asset management. It's asset management where perhaps they're looking at the bigger picture within, say, the performance of a group of hotels. They're working on behalf of the investors, the owners, and for them it's about the return on investment. It's about end result. So even if you're a revenue manager in the hotel, the asset manager guys are not worried so much about the day-to-day pricing. It's about what's the profitability and how they're going to drive that. So asset management, will suit some people and not suit others. I guess negative side of this culture is it can create a huge amount of pressure. We said last week, too much pressure. Certain amount of pressure optimizes performance. Too much pressure drives anxiety and underperformance. So that can be a problem. Also, this can drive a culture of dishonesty and friction, where people are so intent on the end result that they worry less about the colleagues they're working with, and it's about, I'm going to win at all costs. I'm going to get to my end result without worrying about whose toes I tread on. That's also why some of the managers have to be tough, because they have to make decisions to sort out that friction. Hierarchy. So this is the more traditional type of structure. It is more about layers. It's layers of management. It is very process driven, and the strapline in this really is do things right. It is that you are following a process. There's a procedures to do, to make sure you follow, to make sure that what happens is done the way it is expected to be done. Leaders check employees. Arguably, you'd say this can be more micromanagement. If it's done too much, and therefore, There's with a loss of management, everyone's looking down on each other and trying to make sure things are done correctly. You'd probably naturally say a lot of big corporate environments are led in this way. Perhaps some, consolidated central corporate head office revenue management functions, if they're not careful, can be too hierarchical. Saying that, saying that with the way that millennials, the new generations coming through, they're much more wanting to know what businesses are doing for them. And therefore, a lot of hierarchical businesses are trying to develop their culture away more into the clan. And I'll show you how, in a second, where they're close on that circle and how, why they're trying to move into clan. The positive that they do have in hierarchy, though, is with there being a lot of managers, there's a lot of sort of promotional prospects. The people in the business aim up. The managers generally are respected. Managers have become managers because they're good at what they do. They have a good amount of knowledge, and they're seen to be good performers. So people look up to them and see them as, actually, I want to move into that role. So it does create promotion and places to go to. So from that point of view, there's positives in hierarchy. A slight problem or disadvantage can be employee engagement. So on the flip side of that, if people aren't promoted and one of their peers is, say, promoted, then they can lose engagement and lose employees from that. Also, if the senior management are too far away from ground level, decisions can either take too long to get made, or they get made and then they're not the decisions that actually most people want to happen. So employee engagement can be a problem with hierarchy. So going back to this circle, this is the last thing I'll say before I introduce Nick. You can see from this circle here how, when you look internal and external on the horizontal axis, you can see clan, which is everyone working together with one common goal, and hierarchy, which again is working to a process so everything's done correctly and everyone gets to that aim. Those are sort of internal. It's all about the people internally doing what they should be doing to get to a place. Whereas with market and adhocracy, adhocracy is break the boundaries. Market is about end result. So what they're trying to do is push more clients, is break the boundaries, is find new things. And it's much more external looking. It's much more about winning new clients and looking at the new ways of doing things and new ways of winning new business. From a flexibility point of view, clan and adhocracy are more flexible, because with clan, it's autonomy. You have the common goal, and you're given a chance to go and develop and get to that point. Adhocracy is about creating boundaries, new ideas. Breaking boundaries and new ideas. So you get flexibility in what you're doing. Whereas with hierarchy and market, you basically are told, go and do this, and there are processes to follow. There are very set targets to try and achieve. So they're the differences in the cultures, and you'll see, you're interested when you think of your business you're in now. Ideally, you want the business to probably be in the middle, bang smack in the middle, bit creative, family feel, bit hierarchical. So you've got progression and you've got managers that are giving you input and a bit of advice, and then market where there's some pressure to give you a bit of results feel. So ideally, you want a bit of all that, but you'll find most businesses fit into one of the four, but often have bits of the others in them. And hierarchical businesses are trying to move into clan, because although they've got the structure, because perhaps they're large corporates, they want to create more family feel. They want the new generation to feel that they've got a bit more autonomy and a bit more one business, one family sort of environment. So that gives you a bit of an idea of the type of cultures. And I'm now going to introduce you to Nick Moffatt, who is the Group Director of Revenue Management at easyHotel. He can introduce himself, but effectively he's worked across numerous industries, holiday, airline, different range of hotels, and he's going to just give you a bit of background on his experiences and feelings, and it's a really interesting career, but being able to move and gain that knowledge and that experience. So I don't know if, do I need to unmute you, Nick, or
That's
actually?
fine. Can you hear me?
Perfect. Yeah, perfect. Over to you.
Thanks for the introduction, Roland. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm very pleased to come along and be invited to talk. Apologies for the haircut. I still haven't had a chance to get a haircut yet, as most people. But yeah, I mean, the different types of organisations, in many instances, you know, an organisation will be sort of one as a bias, but then I think, you know, you find, as Roland said, areas of other types of organisation from within, yeah. And it tends to be, you know, the sort of larger organisations that I've worked in are more in sort of a hierarchy / market kind of place. So as Roland kind of said earlier, you know, I've worked in tour operators, worked in UK holiday accommodation providers. I've worked in one of the big international hotel brands. I've also worked for an independent and international hotel brand. And then sort of currently I'm working in a small budget hotel company. And I'll come on a little bit later about why I made the decision to do that. But effectively, all of those organizations, I think, are mostly in one of those 4 boxes. And I'd like to say that I think all of them, I've worked in all of those different types of cultures as well. So I think that's a really interesting sort of way to look at it overall. So yeah, let's start really with the sort of bigger brands. You know, as I said before, they tend to be because they've been around for a long time, and you know, in some respects they've kind of invented most of the things that we're doing in revenue management. They kind of do have this kind of very sort of hierarchical, where there's a lot of processes in there, approach, and also the sort of target driven for the results, yeah, and sort of market share and profit focus, yeah. So, you know, in those kind of organizations, you'll really benefit if you're sort of coming, you know, you're newly wanting to step up somewhere and learn about really good processes and procedures, you know, and want to kind of, you know, I suppose get a really good insight into the discipline. These are tried and tested strategies that these companies have, you know, and what they can give you in terms of experience, you probably won't get elsewhere. Yeah, and you need to kind of get that experience, I think, before you can move on into, you know, the Adhocracies and the clans. Yeah, so, you know, great places to work because you learn so much. Definitely, there's a lot of process in place, and if you like, you know, knowing what you're doing from the off every day, if you're very organized and, you know, you like to have a structure to stay organized, should I say, these are the kind of places that you want to work in. So the big brands, the experienced brands, the international brands, you know, I'd say they definitely operate largely in those sort of kind of areas, especially when you first start there, because what they want is consistency across what everybody's doing, so they can roll it out across a large number of hotels. Yeah. When you come to, you know, more kind of, I would say the sort of market kind of side of a culture, you know, as Roland said, a lot of these are sort of management companies or kind of smaller independent hotel companies. You know, they've got sort of 10, 12 properties, and what they really need to do to survive is to get the best results. Yeah, they're really going to focus. They're taking people perhaps from some of these bigger companies, and, you know, they're asking them, right, whatever you learned there, deliver it here. Yeah, we're not really going to teach you as much. We're going to expect you to deliver. So, you know, what I would say is, and certainly my reason for sort of moving out of the bigger brands to the sort of the you know, independent internationals, if you like, was because, you know, I'd learned all of the processes. I could deliver the processes really well, and I felt now was a really good time, or then was a really good time, to stand on my own 2 feet and really write those processes into a big enough company that it made a difference, but a company that was really focused on getting results. But, you know, when you take that step, you know, you have to be aware that you're going to be a lot less supported by process. That doesn't mean you can't implement the process. The process needs to be implemented. That's why you take the step in the first place. But, you know, you're not necessarily going to walk in and say, this is my sort of to-do list every day. You need to write that to-do list and you need to deliver it. It's fun to definitely go into those kind of environments and work hard and get the results. You know, but obviously you need to go in eyes wide open that, you know, if you're going from a hierarchy into a market, you need to take a level of ownership as well, and you need to be ready to take that ownership. Yeah, and certainly, you know, at the point in my career when I did that, that was what I really needed to do next. I felt that I, you know, needed to step up and own and lead. Yeah, so I mean that's why I did that. In terms of the sort of adhocracy, I've got a very good one there. I won't mention names. I'm sure you can all see if you look at my CV anyway where I've been, but certainly I worked in a fairly entrepreneurial UK holiday brand that really rewarded the staff by sort of thinking outside the box and then delivering great results. So I would say they sat a lot between sort of adhocracy and market. And in this one, it was really, there's the end game. You work out how you're going to get there. And to me, that was always quite an exciting environment to work in. It was sort of encouraged as well to sort of try and test things, yeah, and to sort of, you know, take a sort of measure of calculated risk, yeah. So, you know, that's a real interesting type of culture, I think, to work in, and certainly quite an enjoyable one if you really want a sort of level of, you know, sort of a level of sort of thinking about your own way of creating the end result, if you like. Yeah. So yeah, sort of entrepreneurial and really a very interesting kind of place to work. Yeah. And then Clan, I would say, is definitely applicable to smaller businesses, and certainly at the point in time, I'd say that, you know, probably the company I'm running the revenue for at the moment is a Clan, and probably a little bit of adhocracy as well. Yeah. So here, you know, the family feel, the fact that we all know exactly where we want to go, and we probably don't have all those processes in place, but, you know, we're putting a number of processes in place, I think is really quite exciting, and gives you a very sort of modern and fresh feel to where you work, and the ability to try sort of shape you know, the direction that we're going in overall. So, you know, I wouldn't say that any one of these cultures, you know, you can only work or operate in any one culture. I've flipped between them all, and at different stages in my career, and probably to sort of grow my career more by going through these particular different sort of hierarchies. I've sort of learned very much, as I say, in the hierarchy one, sorry, and then sort of move through, challenge myself in market. And then going into Clan is almost like going back to basics and trying to deliver a whole new revenue management program into a company, which, you know, is a very exciting time. Certainly exciting time for me, exciting time for my team as well at the moment. So yeah, I think the key things here are, don't be frightened to sort of step and change, but be personally aware of when you feel you're ready to make that step and change. Yeah, don't feel you have to make the step and change. If you like a hierarchy environment and you're comfortable there are always good people that stay doing what they do, and they just do it well, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with being very good at what you do and enjoying where you are and just doing it well, and having absolutely no desire to go to the next level. You don't have to go to the next level, yeah. But at the same time, you know, if you feel, you know, if you kind of look at, you know, the types of companies and the cultures that Roland's given here, you know, I think the hierarchy and the market are the first two that kind of give you that experience of getting belt and braces approach. And then you can kind of deliver that in adhocracy and Clan, yeah, and I think in quite an exciting way, and get some really good rewards as well from it. So, you know, for me personally, I think that's probably the reasons why I stepped through the different companies that I stepped through. The exciting thing about coming to the company I'm at the moment, it was much smaller, but I was going through a more autonomous role. And at the same time, it was a bit of a blank page. So, you know, from that point of view, I found that really quite exciting, and a sort of young team, very family sort of feel, and you know, they knew where they need to be going. They had some autonomy to get there, but, you know, in some respects, what I probably bring to the table is a little bit of hierarchy, market, and adhocracy back into that mix, to kind of combine those three things and the experience I've had in other organizations, to make sure that we have some structure, that, you know, we are focused on results and we can be creative thinking at the same time. Yeah. So I suppose really that's kind of sort of my experience and sort of where I've sort of seen it going. And I wouldn't say that any particular culture is more preferable to work in overall, except for the fact that you just need to be doing it at the right time for yourself. Yeah. So I think, you know, as you get more mature in your career, you will probably go through all of these and end up certainly towards the clan and the adhocracy, but start off in the hierarchy and at some point, there's nothing wrong with working in market. I know it sounds like it's sort of tough and, you know, target driven, but actually to challenge yourself, to know that you can produce results under pressure, to not be frightened to go to that meeting in the boardroom with the sort of the heads of departments and say, actually, do you know what? I know what I'm talking about. And actually, we're going to do this. You know, when you start to get to that point in your sort of career, that personal kind of knowledge and experience. And certainly I always remember back when I went into the market organization and everybody seemed to have a view on what we were doing in terms of revenue management. And I just stood up and said, look, unless any of you are more experienced in revenue management in this room than me, I suggest you let me tell you what we're doing in revenue management. And actually they all shut up. So it must have worked. Yeah. So yeah, I think definitely, you know, to start with, if you feel that you want to get the experience, you know, probably a hierarchy or market will get you more prepared for sort of a career growth kind of sort of strategy. But then you'll need to go into adhocracy and clan to really stretch your legs and move forward. I probably haven't got a lot more to add than that, Roland. I'm not sure if you've
yeah,
got any
perfect. Thank you very much.
Well, questions.
I think if anyone's got any questions, please pop them in the chat window, and I'll certainly we'll certainly go through them. I think, Nick, that's great, and I 100% agree with you on. You know, the aim today was obviously to explain the different cultures, but I think without doubt you will probably naturally, as your career goes and your tastes and your needs for your career and things develop potentially, or even you as an individual changes. Actually, what suits you or what you're after will change, and you'll probably end up working across all of these at different times. And it is about understanding perhaps what you need at any one point. So I agree that there's no one that's worse. You know, target-driven environment is not a bad environment at all. It's good actually to understand sometimes what you can produce, because then you know where your you know your capabilities are.
And let's be fair, Roland, you know, in revenue management, everybody gets judged in the end by their results. Yeah. So you've got a very visible job. People can see your prices, they can see your strategies. And, you know, in the clan, you can come out with everything like, this is what we're going to do, this is how we're going to do it. But at the end of the day, you still need to deliver the results. So to feel that you can deliver them well under pressure will give you that confidence to deliver them in other types of businesses.
Yeah, I agree. And that's great, Nick. Thank you very much. That's brilliant. And Nick is a great guy. I've known him a long time. Actually had the pleasure of finding him one of his jobs, to be fair. So I would definitely say, you know, if he doesn't mind, drop him an invite on LinkedIn if you want to keep in touch with him, because he's very good, knows what he's doing. I appreciate we're sort of out of time, but if anyone's got any questions, please do ask. I will, just for 2 minutes, and I'll speed it along just so don't keep you too long. And I'll pop these, when I send out the recording of the event afterwards with the invite for next week, I will pop these questions on that email as well, because I will probably rattle through them a bit now. But if people need to go, then no problems at all. I won't take offense. But one thing I wanted to do is just try and help give you some thought processes in the types of questions to ask if you're trying to understand what the culture of a business is, because I don't think it's, you know, I actually looked online for some of this stuff myself, and there wasn't much around really in how you as an individual could try and put people on the spot to see what cultures the companies are. Because an interviewer, particularly an interviewer that maybe has only been in the business 3 months themselves, they actually might not be the culture that's in that business. You know, they might be there to try and change it. So an interviewer does not always give you the actual honest truth, not saying they're lying. I'm just saying they don't necessarily represent the culture of the business. So some of the things to think about is, firstly, try and understand what culture you're after and why, as we've said there a minute ago. And that might be also if you feel you want more autonomy in your current job, if you want to be a bit more creative, if you feel you've got ideas that you can't really establish in your current place, talk to your line manager. And this isn't about changing jobs. This is about trying to think to yourself, what is it I enjoy? What is it I want to be doing? And if it needs to be conversations up the ladder in your current place, then do it. There's no point moving jobs if everything's good and you just want to develop certain areas. But some questions to think about or to ask, your boss or future you'll know your current company's culture, but so put them on the spot. What are their cultural beliefs? How do they live this? And how do they communicate it internally? You'll tell by how quickly and how naturally someone answers this question or these questions actually on how much it is embedded in the business or how much they're thinking on the spot. So how often are the leaders, founders, owners, senior management in the office? What was the last company achievement that was celebrated? That's quite a good indication of how the company celebrates success, or do they expect success and then just keep rolling on? What was the department's biggest challenge last year and how was it dealt with? What do people in this department do at lunchtime? Firstly, does the line manager know what his team do at lunchtime? And secondly, it's quite a good indicator on, do people eat lunch at their desk? Do they all go out together? It gives you a bit of a feel for how much of a family feel or not the department is. Would you be willing to show me around the office? It's quite an interesting one at interview as to how open they are. How do you measure success and over what time scales? Another question, what does the team or the company give back to the community? That's they're questions that can really assess whether they're sort of clan or market driven. And how does the company deal or allocate its training budgets? Again, if they are allocated per person, everyone has their own budget for training, can be a good indicator that they invest in you as an individual and it's you and your own ideas. If it's generally that there's only a budget for the department and it's training as a whole, then it might be a more process driven environment. I'll pop those questions on the email as I mentioned, but just certain questions to think about you can ask to try and assess. You've also obviously got the company's social media. You've got the staff social media. Look up the staff that are in those businesses. What do they post on social media? Are they on things like Facebook? Is the company on Facebook? It's quite a good one. Socially, if the company's not on Facebook, it often says they don't necessarily do too much for the community because Facebook tends to be more community-led. So just a few areas of food for thought. I would like to thank Nick again. Thank you very much for sparing your time this afternoon. Really appreciate it. Next week, we'll be looking at where revenue management is heading and what skills are going to be important in the future. So we'll start looking at things like, AI and the way technology is coming in. We will have a webinar on technology actually in a couple of weeks, but this will be more about what skills to start thinking might be important down the line, and therefore start looking at what you do or what you enjoy and will they fit where revenue management is heading. So hopefully I'll see you all next week. I will drop this recording out tomorrow and that will be live till Sunday night, and that will have the invite for next week as well. So thank you. It looks like we haven't got any questions, so great. Thank you all for coming, and drop us any questions if you have afterwards. That's no problems at all. Thanks everybody. Thanks, Versa. Thanks, Carolina. Thanks, guys.